Hey, sister, how are you today?
I am great. Coming to you on location
Okay.
from sunny Southern California. I'm happy to be back for a short period of time in the place that I called home for over 11 years. How about you? How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful Sunday here in Central Florida. I started my day off with a great workout, and so I am looking forward to a very great week. I've been laying some things down, got a lot of good things cooking, so I'm excited about what's going to come up this week and in the weeks to come.
Very, very good. That is good to hear. Good to hear. Congratulations on those flat points, by the way.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So today we wanted to, talk about a topic that it often goes overlooked, right? This is a topic about high functioning depression. So I saw this article sometime back and I saved it because I knew that it was a topic that I wanted us to maybe broach at some point in time. But, in recent news, we learned of the suicide of the CEO from Golden Crust. And his name is Lowell Hawthorne. He was the CEO of this company. And so Golden Crust is big here in Central Florida because, we have a large Caribbean community, right? And so it's basically a Caribbean restaurant, Caribbean franchise. And so, over 120 franchises, multiple states. And the theme that I kept seeing in people's posts was, he looked like he had it all, right? And so it got me to thinking about this situation. And then a few years ago, one of the founders of Miss Jessie's, one of my favorite product lines. So people always comment about my hair and like, what products do I use? Well, I love Miss Jessie's products. And one of those sisters committed suicide as well at 45. And it was around this time of year. So you and I have had some conversations about this time of the year, the holidays, how the holidays, for some people, it is a time where they are sad or depressed because maybe they've lost someone in their family or stress or what have you. This is not always a great time for everyone. And then seeing this suicide and then being reminded about her suicide, I was like, maybe we should talk about this topic today. Yes. So that's what brought us here. So, but with that being said, we've done a lot of research and been reading up on the topic. So what have you found and, what do you want to share based on what you've read so far?
The first thing I want to say, I would definitely want to give this caveat. We've indicated it in other shows or what have you, conversations that, by no means are we experts. And this is certainly a topic for which I don't have any level of expertise. So I don't want to give any impression or any indication that, within the next 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, or whatever it is, that we're going to come up with our plan is to diagnose or to come up with solutions or what have you. What jumped out at me in the articles that I did read was that, a lot of times there are a lot of people around us on a daily basis at work, in our schools, in our communities, in our churches, who are going through life. They're functioning and they seemingly, as you said, have it all. Their kids are well behaved and beautiful, and, they send Christmas cards out on time, and they, they're professionals, but they are struggling and they're dealing with a lot of things. And, obviously one of the big things that jumped out at me was reaching out to people. Mm-hmm. Making sure to make that connection, whether it's calling, whether it's texting, whether it's inviting people over, making some level of connection. And they may not reach back, but that it means something to them. And I actually, one of our sorority sisters had posted something on Facebook, and it might have been a sort of a copy and paste situation, but it did get me to think also, to your point, around this time, a lot of people are dealing with a lot of things. And I think in this world that we live in, where we should be more connected, in a lot of ways, we have driven greater disconnection in our lives. Sometimes we send a text message. Sometimes we forget. Sometimes we make the calls. A lot of times we don't. So just finding ways to connect with people, especially those who this time of year may not be as joyful for them. So those are, I think that's what really jumped out at me.
Yeah, that's a really great point, and that's why I put the question up there. Are we more disconnected? You know, we have all of this technology that supposedly draws us closer together, but actually what happened to the one-on-one real human connection that you just can't receive via a text, via a FaceTime, a Skype, or any other type of electronic means? Human touch is important. You know, reaching out and touching someone is critically important. So, you know, have we become more disconnected actually in our attempt to be more connected, or have we really drawn ourselves further apart from one another? So that's very interesting. Well, so as I was doing my research and getting prepared for this conversation, like you, I really I was struck by just, there are a lot of people dealing with depression, right? And so they call it high functioning depression. The experts, there is a term for that, like chronic depression, something called dysthymia. Hi, Kiana. She's chiming in. Josette chimed in. So, hey, thanks for joining the conversation. I had to look up the pronunciation. So it's dysthymia. And I started to reflect on myself. I also reflected on some conversations that I've had with some close friends. And I know a lot of people who have been diagnosed with forms of depression. Right. Mild forms of depression, whether it's general anxiety or, you know, like you said, they're functioning. When you see them, they have a great smile. They give great hugs. If you ask them, how's it going? Oh, everything's, you know, oh, it's okay. Or they just brush over things, or maybe they have like some have a more general, like, negative outlook, but you always say, girl, you're going to be okay. Girl, just bounce back. Mm-hmm. And it just started reminding me that, you know, I need to pay more attention to what people are saying.
Yes.
You know, I think in, you know, my world, as a coach, sometimes, you know, it's all about, you know, that attitude and the great attitude and positive energy. And, you know, as articles have shown, this is not something that you can positive energy your way through. So this is not something that you can just pat people on the back and say, hey, you're going to be fine. They may not be fine. And I think we need to pay more attention to the things that are being said and the things that are not being said sometimes, because there are things that are not being said and we see them. How do we react and respond? So I had to do a self-check of myself and think, have I ever been depressed, right? Because I think there have been times where I have pressed through, but was not really at my best, right? So we have a couple comments. So one from Kiana says, I do believe that with technology, we are instantly able to be connected, but yet very disconnected from each other on that personal level. And then she also commented, we can't just also pray your way out of it. You know, so depression is something that is serious. And I think we need to start taking those signs and symptoms more seriously. And so to that end, I just wanted to read some of the signs that I found. If you had something else you wanted to share, I can find this so I can read it, because like I said, we're not the experts, but we want to be able to provide expert information.
Yeah. So so to Kiana's point about not being able to just pray it away, I definitely agree with that. But I also believe that having a strong support system, having some level of spirituality or something that you connect to that is higher, that helps. That is not the necessarily the full solution, but that is something that helps. And I was going to also add, because you were saying as a coach, a lot of times we talk about the gratitude piece, the positive disposition. Again, all of those things help. And I think that's very important, but we cannot be confused with the fact that depression is something that is clinical. Mm-hmm. And so all of those things, if you say you have a toolkit, all of those things are tools in your toolkit, but they may not they're not in and of themselves going to solve the issue of depression. And so again, I think with this conversation, my goal, I know your goal, is one, to bring awareness to the fact that we have highly functioning people around us every day who are dealing with depression. I can say definitively, I know that I've had moments that I've dealt with depression as well. Two, that, about the connection piece and the disconnection piece, the beauty of being in front of a person and being able to look a person in their face is, to your point about what they're listening for, what they're saying and what they're not saying, but also because I can physically see you. There are some things that when you're on the phone or you're on a text message, you can easily disguise. Mm-hmm. But when I see you and I'm face to face with you and I'm able to look you in your eyes, there are things that I'm able to see that I might miss if I'm just relying on sole communication being over the phone or over the internet or something of that nature. And to Josette's point there about removing the stigma, yes, we have got to remove this stigma about depression, about mental illness, about getting help, seeking help. All of those things are absolutely necessary, and it's important and imperative. As we walk around every day, we need to be bringing our best selves to whatever the conversation is, whatever the situation is. And in order to do that, sometimes we just need help.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a proponent of that. I'm all about help, and I'm all about finding the right people to help you, right? Yeah. So there is a situation where a coach can help you, right? There's also a situation where you might need a counselor. There also may be a situation where you may need a psychiatrist. Now, all of those people have very different lanes, right? And you might need all three, as a matter of fact. So it's really
spiritual advisor as well.
And a spiritual advisor as well. You might need some prayer warriors in your life, right? We need all of that. So, hey, Sister Stephanie, thanks for joining the conversation. So this article, they gave 11 real life ways high functioning depression can manifest itself. And so I just wanted to read some of these because, again, we're going to keep saying this over and over again. We are not the experts in this topic, in this matter. We're talking, and the purpose of Hey Sister is to have some real life conversations. Right. In 2018, we plan on bringing on experts to talk about a myriad of topics. So stay tuned for that. But this topic just rose to the top of the day, just based on what I was seeing in my news feed today. Because not only did we have the gentleman who was the CEO of Golden Crust commit suicide, there was also a young lady who was, I can't remember, this child might have been 10 years old, who committed suicide because of bullying. Right. And it's just, we really have to talk about what is going on the inside, right? And so this is these 11 things. So one, it says difficulty experiencing joy. Mm-hmm. So if you find that you are feeling more burdened and less joyful, we need to talk about that. Relentless critically Relentlessly critical of self and others. That is another sign. Constant self-doubt. Diminished energy. Irritability or excessive anger. Small things feel like huge things. Feelings of guilt and worry over the past and the future. Relying on your coping strategies more and more. So we talked about that system, right? But relying on them more and more. Generalized sadness. And this one got me right here. Seeking perfection. And what it says here is that this one's tough. And in a way, our society condones perfectionism, getting good grades, getting into the Ivy Leagues, landing at amazing tech jobs, striving. But perfectionism has a shadow side where striving turns into unrealistic demands of yourself and psychologically beating yourself up when you fall short or set the bar too high for yourself. And I thought that was powerful because, I know for myself, I know as a parent, what are we pushing ourselves and our children toward? And then the last thing was an inability to rest and slow down. That one, hey, shook me as well, because I know myself, several of my friends, some of us, we have a hard time turning our brains off. Right? And so these were 11 real life ways high functioning depression can manifest. And so it becomes like it's a slow cycle, right? That are a snowball that can start to build and then can get out of control for us. So what do you think about those 11 things as I read them? Did anything make you pause and think,
Yeah, the perfection piece, of course. This morning I had the great opportunity. Shout out to Fred Billazone because he was online watching a video, and I decided to click in, and it was a minister, and the minister referenced Brene Brown, and I know she's one of her favorites, and about never enough. He was saying in the message and saying how we never feel like we have enough money to do things that we want to do, or we never feel like we have enough time to do this, or it's always this never-ending cycle of never enough. And basically in his message, he was like, you are enough. And that was the beauty of the message, or part of the beauty of the message. But relating it to this, I think, and conversations that you and I have also had about, people that you've seen in college or gone to school with, who were really talented, very smart, always made good grades, and then they get to college and they make a C for the first time in their lives. It breaks them down in a way that they literally cannot seemingly overcome the letdown or whatever that experience is. So, but because they've always sought perfection and based on the metric, I guess, if the metric is getting straight A's, they've always gotten straight A's. If the metric is getting into the Ivy League and they've gotten into the Ivy League, they've always met the metric. At the moment that they don't meet the metric, to have some of the physical, mental, emotional responses that come with not meeting the metric, that's what jumps out at me from when we state this desire to seek perfection, excuse me. And to your point, what are the messages that we're really sending? It is one thing, like, by no means am I saying don't do your best, don't strive for personal success, whatever that looks like to you. But are we pushing and creating this unattainable metric or thing that just makes it extremely difficult for people to ever be satisfied and feel like, you know what, I am great in this space? Are we constantly trying to level of perfection that honestly is never going to come? You're never going to be perfect in every aspect of your life. So,
well, I put that in the comment section. I would love to hear what people have to say about, well, what are your metrics? You
yeah.
know? And so we had a comment here for Josette saying not slowing down. I think I could hear that in there, Josette. Would love to read more on that. So what I'll do is when we wrap up, I will go in and put the corresponding links to the things that we're referencing in the comment section, so you can go back and get all of the links that we're talking about today. But I think that's a very good question. Well, first is a great message. You are enough. We are enough. You know, we are born enough when we come here. It's all the stuff that we get in the process of being here that those messages, because you can even, see even in kids, you see these wonderful, brilliant things that then somehow they drift, right? What happens to that? What happens to that spark? It's all of this stuff that we receive and that is being put into us, and then this striving. And so, like they said, striving. And we get it all the time. You see people, they grind hard, they hustle hard. It's hard. Everything is hard and work and hard and hustle. And you're like, okay, no wonder everybody's exhausted. No wonder everybody has insomnia, and then they have these messages and the songs about, we rest when we die. Like, are you kidding me? Like, if you don't rest, your body doesn't restore itself. Like, are you kidding me right now? Right. So we have reinforced like so many of the wrong messages that I think is causing this problem to be perpetuated and to become even greater. And then we are seeing children younger and younger. And I know Kiana's in the school system. I would love to hear her chime in on that. I mean, we are seeing kids even younger and younger have some serious, not just mild depressive episodes, but like serious depressive episodes, or having really hard time coping, and starting to exhibit these signs already. We have someone else saying absolute truth. This is so good. Thank you so much.
Hey, Latifa.
Hey, Latifa. Thank you. Got another comment here from Stephanie. It says, I want to say I absolutely agree with the need for a multidisciplinary approach to depression and mental health. Sometimes it can be environmental triggers or chemical imbalances or both that intensify the 11 symptoms you touched on, and being able to understand I am not okay. And that's deep, and I think also, Stephanie, being able to say, that permission, giving yourself grace to say, I'm not okay, and I'm going to actually seek some help. Because that's one thing I know we struggle with sometimes. I do, for sure. What about you?
Yeah, we all do. We all do. And I didn't mean to interrupt, but the I am not okay piece, because again, going back to what the original intent of the article was about high functioning depression, is I don't know that, because again, with the messages of hustle hard and rest when you die, and you got to get it. And you're constantly striving for this perfection. And again, the people that we're seeing, they appear on the outside to be fine. Sometimes I'm not even sure that we understand I am not okay to articulate it, because we start to believe this is how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to grind all the time.
Right.
I don't sleep, 8 hours a night. That's okay, because that means I'm a high performer,
Grind until I die. You like, girl, stop. I need to rest.
Well, yeah. Listen, I'm going to be the first one to admit I need to sleep. And I need to eat, because I'm going to get angry, and I need to sleep. So, but yeah, so I like, sometimes I'm not even sure. So when I read the first article, I was kind of like, somebody is successful and they're smiling and they're doing well. I don't automatically associate that with they're hiding depression.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, when we started reading more and more articles and talking about the signs and symptoms and things, it makes me wonder how much of it is the desire to have more and establish something better for like your children, your family, or whatever. And then how much of it is just an inability to be able to say, I am not okay, because society tells you you're not supposed to stop and say you're not okay. You're supposed to keep going because that's what we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure that, I mean, I obviously don't have the answer to that, but yes, I think it takes everybody. Stephanie made some very poignant points there, so I just want to call that out again. And I think it takes everybody stopping and evaluating for themselves. And again, if we see people in our lives who are exhibiting their symptoms, it's not up to us to diagnose them and jump to any conclusions. But I definitely think it's important to stop and say, hey, is there anything that you need? Can I help? Is there any, do you want to just sit and talk about things? I think it's important to reestablish that human connection because sometimes I don't think people know that they have the ability, they're allowed to say they're not okay.
Yeah. And so, as we get ready to kind of wrap up this conversation today, this segment, so some signs to look for, and this is from the original article that we read was, this is do they, and this is also a question to ask yourself, are you becoming irritable and agitated easily? If things really get under your skin very easily, it may be time to take a pause and seek some help. Are you too hard on yourself, or are the people around you, are they too hard on themselves? If you're seeing that it's a pattern of behavior, then it's a sign that to look for. And to Stephanie's point, it's worth exploring the conversation, right? Going deeper into the conversation. Do they tell you they feel like they're wasting time? Like I'm wasting time. Are they overly anxious? And then have they or have you started diminishing things that once held importance? So things that were once important or valuable, it's no big deal. It's not that important. It's no big deal. It's not that important, And so those are things that some signs to look for. So if you're having conversations with friends, with a family member, even when you're having those private conversations with yourself, if you're exhibiting some of these signs, you may want to seek an additional professional to have that conversation with. And like Stephanie said, there could be an environmental trigger. There could be something that goes on. It could be a chemical imbalance. But you may have some of these signs and symptoms, and they're mild and they're manageable now, but something can happen. There can be a trigger that really makes it spiral and get worse. And you want to, we want to address that as quickly as possible. And so, both of us, we've said before, we're both members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and we have a partnership with NAMI, which is the National Association of Mental Illness. And so depression is a form of mental illness too. And I think we like to, we see depression or some mental illness, like we have these images in our minds that are old stories, right? We see even the commercials with depression, with the cloud hanging over the person's head. You see these commercials for these drugs, right? With the cloud hanging over their head and gloomy, and then the sunlight starts to shine. It doesn't always look like that. And it's not always like that, right, for everyone. It looks different, and it is different for every person. And that's why it's important to identify those resources that you can get the help and support you need. And then, yes, all the support system we talked about earlier, having all of those things around you is critical. But, we are all in this together. And the purpose of Hey Sister is to have these real conversations and start this honest dialogue. So we'll bring this conversation back with the expert on to go deeper. But we all can look out for each other.
Okay.
We're all here on social media together. You see people some of the signs show up in their social media feed.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you pick up the phone and call them, or do you just comment? Do we laugh and ha, what have you? We need to really be conscious about what we're seeing and then how we're responding to it. I think that's just critical. So that's all that we have so far. Anything you want to say before we sign off?
Yeah, and I just wanted to correct. It's NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Alliance.
Yes. So I just wanted to correct that. But I will say this, at the end of the day, I think that, we live in a society that teaches us to strive for a lot, and by no means should we stop striving to be our very best. By no means should we stop, looking for success and defining it for ourselves. But I think it is important for us to take a step back and to be introspective, and understand when things just don't feel right for us. And then if we see that in others, it's not to be judgmental. It's not to diagnose their issues. It's really about helping other people and being there for them. And, maybe a text message is all they need. Maybe a hug, a smile, a kind word. Maybe those things will likely go a very, very long way for them. So I just want us to find ways to do better with helping each other. One of the things that you mentioned is about triggers. A lot of times we've gotten so numb to how death can trigger things, how mass shootings and things we see on the news can trigger things in us. Folks that have gotten divorces, sometimes they don't even know how deeply that has impacted them. Childbirth. There's a number of things that maybe should otherwise be joyous occasions that sometimes are not. So it's just, I guess if there's anything I can say to close is, let's just do all we can to take care of ourselves and to take care of others. Let's, connect more with people as much as we can. And if there's any disconnecting that needs to take place, it's disconnecting from the things that bring on greater harm. There are a number of resources out there, but to be honest, some of those resources cost, and everybody does not have the same level of access to them. So if you're a counselor or someone who can offer services for free pro bono services to help other people, let's just all find a way to help people, especially in this holiday season where, again, it should be a joyous occasion, but for a lot of people, it may
not be. Right. So, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for those closing remarks, sister. And we'll come back in 2 weeks for a recap of 2017. And let me tell you, there's been some crazy stuff happening in 2017. So we're going to have a lot to talk about next week. And if you want to add to the conversation, remember to join us in 2 weeks for our 2017 year in review. And at any time, follow us on Facebook, like our page, share this broadcast with someone you think may benefit from it, and just let's keep growing this conversation on Hey Sister. So thank you so much. Thank you guys for your comments. Thank you, Kiana, Stephanie, Josette, Latifa. Is Latifa, right? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you all who commented, and those who you watched. We appreciate you, and we are signing off. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.